I thought, interesting time to circle back on a conversation that you and I had 2.5 weeks ago, because I left here to go aloha right before the trade deadline. And you remember what I had said to you, which was that in the calendar month of August and September, as a Giants fan, my entertainment dollar is reserved for one thing and one thing only this year, and that would be a pennant race.
Right.
I am not going to take the kids to the ball game and do Tony's Pizza and do Pete's out in left field, and all, we're not doing that to watch the young people get better. We're doing that if you are in the race. And so I need to ask you a question. Are they in the race?
Absolutely, they're in the race.
Okay.
That's a really good question, Mark.
Thank you.
Really not that great of a question, Roxy.
Well,
it's just a question that has to be asked if you're wondering whether or not you should spend your dollars and you're only going to spend it if they're in the race. You got to ask yourself, are they in the race? Well, the first thing I said to you before you went on your Aloha adventure was, wake me when you get above 500. When you get above 500, then and only then can you look and see if you're in the race. So here they are above 500, 59 and 58. It's been a long time since they've been above 500. In fact, it's been 60 games, Mark, since they've been above 500. They were 29 and 28, and 60 games later, you're back above 500. So congrats, question mark. But you look at the race now because you are above 500, and you're only 3 out. Yes, you're behind 2 teams, really 3 teams to catch the Mets. You're 3 back of the Mets. There's 2 teams in front of you, but I look at those teams. Atlanta is doing Joe Namath on Monday Night Football.
They're leaking.
Struggling.
Yeah.
They are struggling. And St. Louis is a team that I think is kind of regressing to the mean. If you look at their run differential, minus
crazy.
46, that's 4th to last in the National League. So not that the Giants are world beaters at minus 7, but you look at the Giants and their expected win-loss record right now based on run differential is 1 game worse than what it is. So they really are about what they should be, which is a 500 team, but they've got this new rotation that's kind of humming. It's 3/5 humming.
Yeah.
The Bats were pretty good in Washington, and they're really good at home, and they've got a couple of weak sisters of the poor coming up in these next few series. So it's a long answer to say not only is the math there, but things are set up for them to continue to do well in this race.
Yeah,
they're in the race.
You mentioned the home record. Did you know that there are only 2 teams in the National League that have won more games at home than the Giants?
I didn't know that,
2
but
teams.
it makes sense.
2 teams, yeah, and they go by the name of the Dodgers and the Phillies.
Yeah.
That's it.
And those are the really good teams. And Milwaukee's also really good, but that's about it.
Yeah, they're actually they're really good on the road, so that's why their record is what it is. But the Giants have won 33 baseball games at home, and so yeah, here we go with this homestand, and it is calendar month August, and here we are. So it's tenuous, I get it, but that's also another part of my question. I would argue this: the Giants now have a winning record. The number that's in the games back column in the wild card is a manageable number, but does it feel like it? I sort of would argue that right now, most Giants fans I know are looking at this kind of side-eyed. Like, all right, you're in the race, but I'm not sure if I believe you yet. And I think that the reasons for that are abundant. Let's put it that way. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think recent history is part of that. I think we also watch the games and realize that there are some things still going on with this team that don't look right. And we mentioned them yesterday. Their closer's a mess. They do not score runs from third base with less than 2 outs. And 2/5 of their starting rotation looks very young and gassed. And so all of those things are legitimate concerns. And I still think it's hard for even the biggest of Giants fan to reason with the idea that this team's going to go to battle with the Phillies or the Dodgers and make something out of that series.
Yeah, but let's get there first, and then we can worry about whether or not you can make something out of that series. I look at a team that is averaging more than 5 runs a game over the last 13, where they've gone 10-3. And, the majority of those have been on the road. You had 6 at home, 7 on the road. I look at Series 1, and this is something that you and I talked about before you went to Hawaii. Just win series. That's the most important thing. And you swept Colorado. You split with Oakland. You won at Cincinnati, and you won at Washington. Winning series. And you've got Detroit here, 3 at home. Just take 2 of the 3. And then you got Atlanta for 4. Be great to take 3 of the 4, but even a split doesn't hurt you. 2 in Oakland. Split doesn't hurt you. You're just kind of treading water with splits. But if you can win series, just don't lose series. You do have the White Sox coming up for 3. And
so there's 3 wins.
You would hope.
God, I hope.
I mean, anything less than 2 out of 3 would be an abomination. And then you get towards September, and things do get a little rougher. You got Seattle and Milwaukee, both on the road. That might be the ultimate litmus test, but I'm getting too far ahead of myself. That's toward the end of August, but I do think with the pitching being better for the most part, Birdsong and Harrison looking a little long in the tooth.
Well, Birdsong, that was one bad outing. That was one bad outing,
right.
And I'd argue his worst pitch was actually not his fault at all.
No.
That C.J. Abrams 3-run homer
that was crazy.
It was up at his nose. Yep. I don't know how the hell he did that. But anyway, go ahead. You were saying.
I just think when you've got Snell and Ray and Webb pitching at home against lesser teams, those are games that you would expect to win.
Yes.
And, you've been great at home. Blake Snell is usually amazing after July 1st, and that's been the case. His outing in Washington was a little bit lopsided, but he still was able to get the W. Second in a row for Blake Snell. I think that Robbie Ray's been mostly great. So I think everything lines up pretty well for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, when you look at the whole thing, what excites you right now? That's sort of where I'm at, because I still, I've been talking to a lot of Giants fans over the last week. You go to Washington and everything, and a lot of the text messages that are going back and forth are still kind of angry. There's still kind of this residual, you're barking at the TV, you're kind of mad that, there's a runner at third, and there's 1 out, and it's Mike Yastrzemski, who, for example, if you really want to dive into Yaz over the last month and a half, he's been a damn good baseball player. But you send him up there with a runner at third and 1 out, and you're like, oh, God, he's going to strike out. He's going to strike out. You feel that way about Matt Chapman, but Matt Chapman's been a star for the last month, So I'm trying to figure out, put my finger on what it is. Did you know, for example, you just mentioned what they're averaging in terms of offense over the last couple of months?
More than 5.
For the season, the San Francisco Giants average 4.44 runs per game.
It's pretty good.
That is more than they averaged in their World Series years.
That's crazy.
Gather that for a second.
Yeah, they're 13th in baseball right now in runs scored. Better than the league average.
The they can't hit team of you out there, I know, I'm sort of with you. It feels that way, but it isn't. It isn't that way. I've been trying to ring this bell all year. The problem with the San Francisco Giants is their pitching staff. It's not their offense. You could argue that the clutch stats, if there were such a thing, I wish that MLB would adopt that along with the NBA. Tell me what you're doing when it matters. I understand that, right? Your run total is, in the end, I guess, all that matters. But there's too many times where there's a shoulda, coulda, woulda inning that just doesn't happen for the Giants. But that'd be the only thing I could really argue with in terms of offense. They are scoring enough runs. They are giving up too many of them.
Yeah.
That's the problem with this baseball team. And if the reemergence of Blake Snell, the return of Robbie Ray from injury, and Logan Webb squaring himself, if those 3 things change that, then I'd argue we got action.
Yeah, and that's the way I see it, because Blake Snell has been spectacular, nothing short of amazing. And again, the last outing was a little bit, it was just a mediocre outing.
Normal.
But yeah,
it was a normal good outing.
Right,
yeah.
But he had been almost legendary, almost world record breaking before that. Robbie Ray's been spectacular, and Logan Webb, it seems, off his last outing, has found himself again after 3 a little bit uneven performances. And then you get to the other 2 spots, and you hope that Harrison can find a little bit more of the velocity, and you hope that Hayden Birdsong just had a one-off bad outing in what's been a great start to his career. Your team is much better from a pitching standpoint at home. The one thing you do still kind of hold your breath over, and you've been mentioning it all week, it's your closer, Camilo Doval, and you have to hold a reliever back just in case. You've got your just-in-case guy in the bullpen now because you don't totally have full faith in Camilo Doval. That's not a good thing for a team that's making a playoff push.
The Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, and the Nationals. That's the list. Those are the National League teams who have given up more runs than the Giants. And they play in the best pitcher's park in baseball. So that's not okay. That's not okay. And that is the problem. I know all the other things that feel like they're a problem. Soler grounds into a double play. Well, he's gone. And there are little things that we can pick at. There's still injuries going on out there. They're very young all of a sudden up the middle of the diamond. Like insanely young. You've got this group of 3 players, Tyler Fitzgerald, Brett Wisely, and Casey Schmidt. And bless the man. He'd been on the show. His smile is infectious. I love everything about who he is, but right now it does not appear that Casey Schmidt is a big league baseball player. I'm sorry. He just isn't. I don't know any other way to say it. And somehow with all of that, and then just like newfound people, let's grab Encarnacion and trade for Mark Canha and let's roll. And all of a sudden, you win 10 out of 13 baseball games.
You've got Harar and Encarnacion replacing Marco Luciano.
Exactly.
Which all of a sudden we're not wondering about where the hell is Marco.
Nobody's bothered.
No. And
Tyler Fitzgerald might be a star.
Might be. All he does is hit bombs.
I mean, this is getting to be a little bit long to be a hot streak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we saw this from Elliot Ramos.
And it stuck.
Right. And he's still been good, but he had a little bit of a down period, and now he's bounced back some. This is obviously longer than the Luis Matos hot streak, but Elliot Ramos has put together a half a year already, a full half a year of 849 OPS with 17 homers. That's legit. I'm not saying that he's come crashing back down to earth, but he leveled off a little bit. And Tyler Fitzgerald so far through 54 games, exactly 1/3 of a full season, the OPS is over 1,000. 1,009 for Tyler Fitzgerald, the OPS. In 54 games.
That's superstardom.
Right. That's a third of a season, though. I mean, that's a full third now at 54 games.